So I'm with him on this one, and I like that he's actually talking about policy. This guy doesn't respond, doesn't care, isn't paying attention. Again, he would go, I don't know, does a black guy kind of get it? No? Okay. Graham Plattner is currently running for Senate. He's a combat veteran, Marines and Army, friend of the working Mainer, foe of the oligarchy, husband, candidate for U.S. Senate. So I'm not sure exactly what his whole story is in terms of how he got to a point where he was a nationally recognized Senate candidate. He is roughly my age. He might actually be younger than me. Let's look him up. But he is running on an explicitly, you know what? He is a couple of months younger than me. He was born in September of 1984, whereas I was born in March of 1984. So he's an oyster farmer and Marine Corps veteran running on a specific economic populist message. As it says right here, born and raised in coastal Maine, aka racist Maine. The cool thing about New England is that they're racist but Democrat still, broadly. He enlisted in the Marine Corps after graduating high school. He served 8 years, including 3 combat tours in Iraq as a Marine and 1 in Afghanistan with the Maryland Army National Guard. Now, a thing about him that a lot of people mention, first off, his voice. Let's hear it.
I wouldn't do this. I have an immense amount of hope. However, I do think that there is an innate contradiction in trying to be a party that represents working people, representing those that struggle, those that labor, those that are often exploited or taken advantage of. It is impossible to represent their interests while also trying to represent the interests of those that exploit them. I think that that is a fundamental contradiction that you cannot get past.
Sure. So after he went and served in the Army, he joined up with some contractor, which is basically like being in the Army and you probably get paid more. I'm not sure exactly how it works. It's private Army. Like you leave the public school and start working at, a Wendy's, which is, the private school of the fast food world. And he did that for a while. Then he started an oyster farm. He did pretty good. As it says right here, he was voted most likely to start a revolution. All right. He appeared in his high school yearbook with a sign declaring free Kosovo, Chechnya, Kashmir, Palestine, Kurdistan, Tibet. When he was 18, he was quoted in the Bangor Daily News after protesting President George W. Bush in the Iraq War at an appearance by Bush at Bangor International Airport. I started yelling, "Don't attack Iraq. If our best generals tell us not to go to war, why should we?" Then he enlisted in the war, which is interesting. As to why, he said, I thought I could do some good, and I wanted to play soldier. I might have read too much Hemingway. You guys might not remember this because, again, I checked on TikTok, and I have like 10 viewers on TikTok who presumably are all 7 years old and Chinese. But he's the same age as me, roughly, slightly younger. He graduated in 2003, whereas I graduated in 2002. So who's really the winner here, buddy? And it was a thing at the time to join the Army. It was post 9/11 is like the most patriotism America has had since World War II. Way more than like Vietnam and like that. Because Vietnam, people don't really give it. Some people were like, I'm going to sign up and be like my daddy who fought in World War II. Blah, 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 blah. But yeah, for the most part, no one really cared. There was a little bit at the beginning, and it curdled pretty fast because we had too many cameras on the ground, and everyone kind of was like, wait, what does it have to do with anything? But after 9/11, there was a sense of like, we got to go in there. A lot of people signed up for the military. Not that many because it sucks and everyone knew that. I didn't. I thought about it at the time. I sometimes regret not signing up. For example, when I wake up in the middle of the night and I pee. When I wake up in the middle of the night and the pee is still in me and not all over me, and then a dog, barks and I don't immediately kill my girlfriend and start, calling her Mujahideen or something. I killed her. She was making Muslimic noises. I am mocking veterans. I'm mocking them. Very stupid. If you were smart, you would have gotten out of it. Okay, you would have dodged the draft that we had. So he signed up, which for a lot of people, I think, and Lamp earlier said he looks like a baby killer. And by that, she meant abortion doctor. She's extremely pro-life. People don't know that about her. His military service, especially his military service with Constellus, as it says right here, which was a State Department security contractor, people did not care for that. People don't care for that. I'll tell you what else people don't care for, okay? He had a Nazi tattoo. He's gotten it covered up. Let's just say it probably has a controversy here somewhere. Reddit posts and Nazi link tattoo. Let's talk about the whole thing. In October 2025, various news outlets reported on Reddit posts Plattner made between 2013 and 2021, in which he revealed that he was Kin Bone, which he said he was glad he saw Jennifer Lawrence's butthole. He called himself a communist, wrote that all cops are bastards, and agreed with the post calling rural white Americans racist and stupid. Honestly, I'd vote for that platform. I don't know about the communist. It seems a little LARPy, but I like the part where he calls rural white Americans racist and stupid. That's getting me, man. That I'm vibing with. In an interview with CNN, Plattner said of those comments, that was very much me around on the internet. I don't think any of that is indicative of who I am today. First off, I don't like the swearing. And our elected officials, we don't need to be using potty words. Keep it clean, Graham. In a 2013 Reddit discussion about underwear, which a lot of people know this, underwear is just Care Bears underoos. Put that on, someone's about to and they go, nah, gross. Plattner wrote that people worried about should, quote, take some responsibility for themselves and not get so up they wind up having sex with someone they don't mean to. That's a tough one. What are we going to say? Because we're in the hot take zone. Plattner, this is that Subway take show. And I got to say, if I 100% agree or 100% disagree, it's going to be my hot take. When I'm on Subway takes, the guy goes, what's your hot take? And I go, most of the time, if someone's it's their fault. The guy goes, 100% disagree. I don't like that. Here's the thing, right? I'm not opposed to first, it seems that if it's like, I don't know exactly what this underwear, what that is exactly. My mind goes to, it's not the underwear, but there's like sheaths they would have in African villages that you put up your pussy and it has like a bunch of razors and like that. And so if someone tries to put their dick in there, it just shreds their dick, which is funny to me. I don't know exactly what it means by underwear. I would say that I don't like the phrasing of saying, quote, take some responsibility for themselves. It's not the phrasing I would use. If it was like, are there situations where people should be more aware of their surroundings and drink less? Of course there. That shouldn't be, I'm doing chink unger, chunk yogurt. Of course. It's true. Doesn't mean it's anybody's fault. You know what I'm saying? So I can see the two things being the same, which is that if someone's, that's obviously not their fault. People should not other people. And if someone was, they should be treated seriously by the law. And the person who should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Okay? And at the same time, you can be careful. All right? Be careful out there, guys. For some reason, I'm doing a Trump. Be careful out there, guys. Plattner also referenced political violence in multiple posts. In 2018, he wrote, fight until you get tired of fighting with words, and then fight with signs and fists and guns, if need be. He also wrote that an unarmed working is a requirement for economic justice and urged readers to get armed, get organized. The other side sure as hell is. The read I'm getting out of all this, agree with it, disagree with it, I don't take it terribly seriously. To me, it reads like Reddit communist LARPing. Reads like, someone in a Hassan Piker subreddit being like, we should kill the landlords. I agree. I think it's LARPing. But often it's LARPing that comes from a good place. The whole economic populist thing that he's currently running on. And we'll talk more about this when we watch a video of him. The whole populism thing, I'm weary about it. We're in a populist moment. People want to hear this message. So you could argue that it's worth it just electorally, okay? I don't like a lot of it because it's super reductive. I think it is because what is populism is a thing people tend to define. And it doesn't just mean ideas that are popular. It means very specifically an us versus them mentality. And I think a lot of people in America have an us versus them mentality. And who's the them? That's complicated, right? For a lot of people, it's the Jews. And that's not helped by Israel's Palestinian people, and more specifically, by Israel's influence on American politics, the amount of money they put into it via AIPAC. They're not the only country to do this, but they're in a particularly egregious example of it. Okay? In terms of, you know, a war happening on the other side of the world where one group, another group, I don't like it. It's bad, but it's not like that's anything new. That happens all the time. But the sheer amount of influence they have on American politics, they being the state of Israel, they not being the Jews, okay? The Jews don't have that power. Larry David can't get out of a parking ticket. He's tried. It was a whole episode. That level of influence that they have. Welcome to Yosseri and Andrew's chat room. I agree, Hobo with the shotgun. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for hanging out with us right here. We're talking about Jews. So, the state of Israel obviously isn't the Jewish people, but the state of Israel has an undue influence on American politics. I don't feel like that's controversial. And when there's already a baked-in conspiracy theory that the Jews control all the levels of power, a conspiracy theory that is thousands, literally thousands of years old, and the exact reasons for it are complicated and have to do with history and blah, 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 all that kind of shit. But when you already have that conspiracy theory, and then you see the level of influence the state of Israel has on American politics, I don't know if I want to say most people, but a lot of people are just going to plug that in and go, oh, the Jews run the world. Okay? And populism, which is, I think, pretty explicitly, I don't know if he's called himself a populist, but that's, you know, obviously what he's doing. He's an economic populist specifically. A little too often it can become Jews. Okay? And I don't like that. But even beyond that, I think we have very, very complex problems facing America. And I think when populism just becomes like billionaires, you know, of course, famously firebomb a Walmart, it tends to reduce the actual political effectiveness of things. But we'll see. Now, the question is, what's Graham Plattner's opinion on the Jews? Well, funny you should ask. In an interview with Pod Save America, Plattner addressed claims that a skull and bones tattoo on his chest resembled the Totenkopf, a symbol worn by the Nazi Schutzstaffel paramilitary organization. Now, I do have a college minor in German, and so it's funny because Totenkopf means the dead head, the dead skull. And it's like Kopf is just kind of the head in general, I think. I'm not very good at German despite having a college minor in it. So, like a lot of Nazi it is cool as hell. It's bad. The Nazis were bad. No one take that clip out of context, okay? The Nazis were bad. I don't like them. Thumbs down to their whole thing. They had some imagery, all right? They were decent at marketing. We got to give them that. But Graham Plattner had a Totenkopf on his chest. He didn't tell anyone about it. What did he say about it? Well, Plattner said that he and some other Marines got the tattoo while on leave in Croatia in 2007, not knowing its symbolism. While acknowledging the resemblance, he said that he had not been aware of it until reporters and political operatives from D.C. contacted him during his campaign. He said he had recently got it covered up. CNN and Jewish Insider reported that an anonymous former acquaintance of Plattner's claimed Plattner was aware of the tattoo's meaning and had previously called it my Totenkopf. Maine Governor Janet Mills, one of Plattner's opponents in the Democratic primary, called the tattoo abhorrent. She said, I obviously vehemently disagree with the things he's been quoted as saying and doing, but it was up to the people to decide whether he should remain in the Senate race. So, the Nazi tattoo combined with the populist language and then with the military I'm not saying Graham Plattner is a crypto Nazi or a hidden Nazi. And you know what I would also say? Let me get this out of the way right up now. If you live in Maine, I'd recommend voting for Graham Plattner. I would. Guess what? Vote blue no matter who. All right? I do believe in that. Because here's the deal. Is Graham Plattner a Nazi? Maybe. Probably not. Seems unlikely that he would have, done all of this activism up to this point while being a secret Nazi. That seems pretty unlikely to me. But it's not impossible. So, I would say the chance of Graham Plattner being a Nazi, I don't know, 20%, 30% maybe. Tough to say. The chance of the Republican, Susan Collins, being a Nazi, 100%. And she's one of the least Naziest people in Maine. And Graham Plattner's going to be the Democratic nominee now because Janet Mills, who was the governor and who's old as stepped into the race to compete against him. And then she dropped out because she didn't want to do it. Based on reports, Chuck Schumer kind of like twisted her arm to get in and do it. And then, because, this was the other problem. Again, going back to all of these anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about Israel and Israel's role, Chuck Schumer has literally openly said before his job is to keep the Democratic Party supportive of Israel. He seems ideologically committed to it. Or at least a Nazi supporter. You know what, Ad Rock? If it turns out, Graham Plattner wins, I'm not entirely convinced he will. A lot of people are super convinced. We'll see, and I'll talk about it. But if he wins and then, first day on the office, he's like, it's now illegal to be Jewish in Maine. Whatever the hell he says. We're putting the foreskin back on with Gorilla Glue. If he does that, I would be like, yeah, we could see the signs. Come on. But, Susan Collins is a Nazi, supporter of Nazis. She's, said things against Trump a little bit, voted against him on some reproductive rights things, but it's about political power. And so I would recommend voting for Graham Plattner if you live in Maine. I don't think anyone watching lives in Maine. I don't think that me saying that means anything. But let me just preface that. I do believe that. And I do believe in voting blue no matter who. I mean, there's probably some exceptions you could come up with, but broadly speaking, and there are people in this very chat who are like, Democratic Party, I don't want to support the Democratic Party. If that's your position, that's your position. I disagree with you because I would like to solve as many things via electoralism as possible because that's a far more pleasant way to handle things. I would agree that electoral politics is not the end-all be-all. There's a lot more that you can do. So if someone, thinks that electoral politics is limited, I agree with that. But I would still say that there's clearly a better choice. Democrats are better than Republicans. That is you, Lamp. You are correct. You're opposed to it. And you know what? I don't entirely disagree with you. Again, I don't think anyone, except maybe the most crazy deluded lib, would say that, like, no, electoral politics is all. We can just vote our way out of our problems. I don't think that's necessarily the case. There's a lot that will need to be done culturally, community levels, build up your local community, help support your local community, all that kind of shit. I firmly believe that. And even if, we elect Democrats at the level where in 2028 they have a trifecta and they can actually get a lot done, that'll be disappointing. There'll be a lot that will not be able to be done via electoral politics. I would like to get as much done via electoral politics as possible, but there is a limit to it. But if you don't want to engage in it, that's on you. I'm not a vote shamer. I'm just not. People are going to vote how they're going to vote. That's their right to do it. And honestly, everyone gets all butthurt about these internet lefties. I'm getting really into drama, by the way. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos about drama. There was a big one earlier this week where Taylor Lorenz was on the Live and Learn podcast, and she wrote an article about Chorus. And none of it matters. I never said people shouldn't vote. I know you didn't, but you have been, correct me if I'm wrong here, you have said if, and this does vary because you have to look at the federal level versus the local level. Because as far as I know, what you have said is that if Gavin Newsom is the nominee, a lot of people hate Live and Learn. I was watching it. Because there's this guy on at Hutch whose whole thing is just like Hassan Piker. I forgot his actual name. I'm too brown drop pill. That's his whole channel, and he makes like a decent living. Apparently, he used to play video games or something. He's a weird bald guy. But I knew Taylor Lorenz would be on it. Listen, you're not wrong. I watch a lot of his stuff. I think he would admit to being stupid, but he's like barely talks about politics. It's a drama channel. He's mostly like Hassan Piker, Pisco can be saved. Well, a lot of people in the others. This is the drama that I love. This is the drama I crave. Where Pisco is like, yes or no, yes or no. Do you think moderates can be liberals or whatever? I don't know. IRI is a tool. First off, he's the guy from the how do I know all these names now? I'm into the drama. That's how. He's of course the actual guy from the Offspring Pretty Fly for a White Guy video. For a white guy. Listen, they're liberals and they are what they are. They live and learn. They are what they are. But Taylor Lorenz was on, and she's very fun to watch because she's seriously mentally ill. And I don't say that in the same way and Live and Let Die. I agree with that. It's easy when people have political views that might be different than yours to say they're mentally ill. She's legitimately mentally ill. There's a lot of criticisms one can have of Joe Biden's presidency. Don't get me wrong. Her main thing is that he didn't take COVID seriously enough and did what she called a, quote, genocide of disabled people. She's crazy. And I think her chorus article was largely a load of with some good points about, dark money and things. But again, don't care about actual politics. This is not like a politics thing. This is just about drama. I love the drama. I love people yelling at each other over stupid. It is not politics. It doesn't help anyone. And these people are so mad at whatever the Hassan Piker, like the, anti-electoral leftists, which again, it's a little more complicated because someone like Hassan Piker did vote for Kamala and he did say she'd be better than Trump and blah, blah, blah. I think I like the Democratic Party more than he does. They are instilled with that good old American anti-communism. There's a lot of that. Now, again, I don't particularly like communism very much. Okay? There's things about it. There's aspects of socialism. I'd probably say my actual political beliefs are probably something more akin to democratic socialism or something like that, kind of a Nordic model. Pretty basic you have, nothing terribly radical or interesting. I would agree that those guys are a little too crazy obsessed with it. They would have long debates about would you vote for Hassan Piker if he was running for president? And I'd be like, I don't know, probably not, but he's not. He's not. What's your point? He's an influencer. If I actually believed there was any threat of authoritarian communist rule in America, we could have a conversation about stopping it, but there's not. That's not really a thing you need to be worried about. And that's the whole point. When they get mad at these, Kyle Kulinski, Hassan Piker, these the Dems, I disagree with a lot of criticisms they make, but there are certainly criticisms that are completely valid, especially around democratic messaging strategy. But more importantly, it's they're small fishes. Even Hassan Piker, who is, the biggest of these fishes, in the degree as to which he influences anyone is tough to say. But the people who mostly watch him are young people who don't vote anyway, So it's what, a 15-year-old who's I'm a proud anarcho-communist. Okay, cool. I'm glad you're having fun. Doesn't really matter. Lampboob says, I got into a huge fight in a different Twitch streamer's Discord one time because they basically were saying the only two options for male role models were Hassan Parker or Andrew Tate. And the big thing is, I think that's the same person. I think they've never been in the same room at the same time. Yeah, I mean, I would recommend young men probably don't do anything Andrew Tate says or does. Really, maybe you could have his drive to get more money from 11-year-olds is ambitious and God bless him and we love it. But I think he's probably a terrible person. That is very, very stupid. Hassan Piker, I think, is, I don't know. I talked about this before. I think I did a stream a couple weeks ago. We talked a little bit about him and the sort of, there was a little while where there were articles in actual publications, like New York Times about Hassan Piker. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not a particularly big fan. I think he's just an influencer. I don't think there's a lot of ideological consistency. He talks about being opposed to imperialism, but he has no problem with Chinese imperialism or Russian imperialism. I think he's just anti-American. That's fine. It is what it is. I don't even think he's really anti-American. He's just putting on, he's just saying what the 13-year-old communists want to hear so we can keep getting money. But at the same time, you can believe that and also believe there's a lot of money that was getting poured in to smear him. Okay? And all of these, like, do you feel worse voting for Hillary or Kamala? Hillary. Kamala, I didn't feel bad voting for Kamala, and I'd vote for Kamala again. And I think she would have been a fine president, to be entirely honest with you. Again, there are fundamental issues in America that I don't think she would have solved, but within her role as president of America, within her role of electoral politics, I think she would have been effective, certainly better than Trump. Hillary, I was a little bit, that's controversial, because I would say I was considerably more anti-Democratic Party in 2016 than I was in 2024. Over the course of 8 years, part of that was watching how bad the Republicans were. That really put things into stark contrast for me. Another part of it was Hillary is a fool. Listen, I don't got a lot of love for Hillary Clinton. I don't. I think there was a lot of propaganda, anti-Hillary Clinton propaganda, put forth by a lot of people. I would say that doesn't mean there's not valid criticisms of Hillary Clinton, which of course there were. Okay. As Secretary of State, she was far more war hawkish than I would have cared for. I think a lot of her, I'm to the left of Hillary Clinton, It is what it is. I'm to the left of the Democratic Party in terms of my personal beliefs, but still within within electoral politics, I think Hillary Clinton would have been a fine president, still would have bombed plenty of, brown children and all that kind of She would have done the America does, but, yeah, I don't know. I'm probably a democratic socialist. That's just what I would call myself if I had to align myself with something. I'm not particularly radical, but then again, I have money. So there you go. So I want to watch this to learn a little bit more about what Graham Plattner is talking about, because I think here's the thing about Graham Plattner, right? These, all this drama about these crazy lefties. I think a lot of them are just, it's YouTube, not real politics. But what they claim is, well, what they seem to believe is that most Americans are left-wing, pretty left-wing, or at least left-wing economic populist. And what they basically are positing is that if someone ran on left-wing economic populism, they could win rural voters. That's the proposal. Son Piker, Vaush, all of these sort of weird, crazy anti-democrat left-wingers, right? That's what they're saying. They're saying that, putting another corporate stooge, whatever they want to say, like Gavin Newsom. We've debated Gavin Newsom in here before. I don't think he's going to be a nominee. I think he's fallen off, although who the knows? I don't think, oh yeah, you haven't been following it. Vouch for a long time. I would kind of watch his stuff. So I don't think he's a stupid guy. But since the election of Hillary Clinton, he's lost his mind. First off, he's literally said every problem is Israel. He said he's truly, of all of these people where Israel-Palestine is their number one issue, it's their only issue, it's all they care about. Every video of his, it does not matter the topic, it will go back to Israel-Palestine and him just screaming about Benjamin Netanyahu and all that. And again, I don't particularly like Benjamin Netanyahu. I don't particularly like the Israeli government. I don't really like the country. I don't like the concept of an ethno-state. Okay? I'm sympathetic as to why Jewish people would feel like they, but for basically, I don't like any country that's like, this is devoted to one specific ethnicity and other ethnicities are citizens. I don't know if Israel's the only example of this. Certainly not the only example throughout history, but I don't like it. But I understand the Jewish argument about make an exception for us. All right. After everything we've been through, I get that argument. I don't like it because it results in the way the people of Palestine are being treated. I don't like the way the people of Palestine are being treated. I don't want our government to give them money and weapons. I don't want our government to support them at the level they are. But Vaush is like, we need to nuke Israel. We need to Tel Aviv. He's insane. He's crazy. And he's hardcore don't vote for Democrats, the Dems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he's a big, I wouldn't vote for Gavin Newsom. Hassan Piker said he wouldn't vote for Gavin Newsom. And again, and Lamp, you said you wouldn't vote for Gavin Newsom. That's fine. Vote for who you're going to vote for. I'd vote for Gavin Newsom. Not that I don't have criticisms of him, but I would say this. If someone has criticisms of Gavin Newsom, but didn't he do that whole progressive victory thing and then support Kamala? He did when Kamala was running, he supported Kamala. And then I don't know everything he's done or hasn't done, but I know he's a big on the Dems and very explicitly like, I will not vote for. They always specifically mention Gavin Newsom. And here's my point. There's plenty of completely valid criticisms about Gavin Newsom. But if someone wants to come to me and talk about those criticisms, I would like for you to tell me at least as much about actual policies he has instituted in the state of California as you do about his podcasts. And his podcasts are cringe. You shouldn't be nice to people like Charlie Kirk. Someone else had a different approach to Charlie Kirk. And maybe I'm a little more in line with that, to be entirely honest with you. Not a big fan of these people. Don't be nice to Ben Shapiro, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, a lot of people wouldn't vote for Gavin Newsom. What I would say is, A, look at actual policies, not podcast. I could talk to you about his policies. And I'd love to hear them. I'm not a Gavin Newsom supporter. I'm literally not. I wouldn't vote for him in a primary. I wouldn't. I don't think he's a good choice for the nomination. I wouldn't vote for him in a primary both because his politics are to the right of me, and I don't think he is going to get the support of the Democratic base. I don't. Next show, let's rip him apart. Let's do it. I'll talk to you. We'll bring it up. Now, again, I don't think he's relevant anymore. I think he's kind of dropped off. There's plenty of criticisms of him. I've heard about homeless policies and things like that. There was some wealth tax stuff he didn't approve of in California, and I think that's valid. They're going to put him back in as the candidate. Well, here's the thing, right? You say they're going to pull him back in as the candidate. The question I have for you, again, if you don't want to participate in electoral politics, go with God. There's plenty you can do. But if you don't want Gavin Newsom to be the nominee, I'm with you. I agree with you. Support someone else, all right? When Hassan Piker is out there being like, if Gavin Newsom is the nominee, I'm just going to vote third party. I disagree with him, but more importantly, I don't disagree that he would do that. Maybe he would, maybe he would. Who gives a shit? How he individually votes isn't the important thing, okay? Hassan Piker for president. That weird, stupid debate, bro, where Hutch was like, I would vote for Jeffrey Epstein over Hassan Piker. And I'm like, neither of them are running for president. You don't have to vote for either of them, okay? In a thought experiment, who would I vote for? I don't know. Maybe Jeffrey Epstein. He seemed like he was kind of a moderate Democrat. Maybe but I don't know. Neither of them are running. It's fine. It's fine, okay? I don't think Gavin Newsom's going to be the nominee. I don't. Because I think people want economic populism. And that's what Graham Plattner is giving them. And that's my point. All these leftists, and not just leftists online, but they represent a growing movement, a voice in this country of people who say the Democratic Party needs to put forth progressive candidates and they can win. All right? And Hassan Piker is the new George Soros. That is true. He's donating everything to everybody. What did George Soros even really do? He gave money to he funded some NGO that gave means tested rebates to black women who started Foot Lockers or something. People hate that guy. My point is they all these lefties also don't talk enough about the difference between different races. They'll talk a lot about Mamdani, and I like Mamdani. I don't live in New York. I don't give that much of a to be entirely honest with you. But what I see about the guy, I like him. And there are things that Mamdani has done that could work, maybe could work on a nationwide level. Graham Plattner, I feel, is really the test. Can he win in Maine? Can more Graham Plattners win in other places? And I would say that the progressives, if your goal is to attain political power, try to find some people without Nazi tattoos, and that's just my opinion. We'll see. Here, he did this video. Graham Plattner talks with a 3-time Trump voter. Now, I'm going to warn you. All right. This will cause psychic damage. It's actually talking to real MAGA, not the actual voters, not the media personalities who are lying and they know they're lying and they're paid to lie. Talking to an actual Trump voter, you will get another chromosome. You will get half a chromosome. You're not going to be fully Down syndrome at the end of this, but you'll be getting close.
When we set out on this campaign, I was fully convinced that working people in this state have a lot more in common with each other than they might think. We often find ourselves surprised to realize that we have almost everything in common. And in the spirit of that, we're going to sit down this morning with a Republican voter from Machias and try to find out what we agree on.
Coffee with Republican voters. So, the important question, should Plattner go on Tucker? Talk about that. So, Graham Plattner, all of America is vibes. It doesn't matter what the you actually do, what your policies are. Graham Plattner has policies. He talks about them. He talks about them in this very video. Nick Swarter came down to the ICE facility and tried to talk to me, and that's what he was saying. We have more in common than you think. Nick Swarter, I don't know who that is. Not, I don't know who these people are. Not Nick Shirley, that guy. Yes. Well, and that's Graham Plattner's thing. Do we have more in common? I think we do, but I got a lot of things talking about right now. First off, it's all just vibes. All right. And so Nick Swartzen, I did read that as Nick Swartzen first. And like, did you ask him to do some lines from Dickie Roberts, former child, whatever the movie was? No, Bucky Larson, Born to be a Star. Dickie Roberts is the David Spade film. Don't get it twisted. No, Graham Plattner presents as this, and by all accounts, he kind of actually is. Like, I'm just a working guy. I'm just an oyster fisherman. So, can someone with these working blue collar vibes pitch economic populism? Can it work? I don't know. Interesting to see.
Yeah, they asked me earlier, a minute ago, why I got in.
First of all, every Trump voter looks like this. I've said before, and I do mean it. Phrenology is real, but only for Republicans. That is a very clearly Republican head. There's also something about this where they don't have Republicans don't have put up on the top of their head like that. I got a couple of pairs of antique calipers at a garage sale the other day. Measure this guy's head, and you will see that it's sneaky. Also, all coffee shops in Maine are also gas stations.
Into politics, or how long? If I'd always been involved in politics, I haven't. 10 years ago, Trump decided to run, and he spoke my language, and I voted for him again. I voted for him 3 times.
They kind of cut away there. Here's the thing. Let me preface all of this with this. Graham Plattner's whole thing about we have more in common than you think. I don't buy it. I really don't. The whole economic populist thing, and I know I keep saying that term, but and Trump runs an economic populism too. I think Trump sucks some dick. The Iranian people believe that the principle of autocracy is outdated. I'm going to be honest with you. You lost me already. We start talking about, the IRGC. I don't know. I don't even know what that means. Is literally an elected body. Anyone can become an IRGC member if they Mulhallah's selection, and Mulhallahs can become part of the 88 Ayatollahs if they IRGC selection. Trump simply wanted to find traitors for dollars. I agree with you. I have what you've said might be an intelligent, reasonable read of the situation, or you might be schizophrenic. I really don't know enough to say. Be one or the other. But sir, we're making fun of rurals right now. So, global politics will be the next stream being led by someone smarter than me. Right now, we're just making fun of people dumber than me. Who's this guy? I don't think they really care. The whole notion of I'm not making enough money. The problem is corporations are buying houses. They're just racist. They're just hateful. Okay? Trump was speaking my language. What was he speaking? You're just afraid of brown people. This guy can say whatever the he wants. Okay? It doesn't matter. He voted for Trump 3 times. Did Trump make the economy better the first time? Not really. People are very stupid. People are very stupid and very racist. And I think, populism is a combination of ignoring to that and catering to it at the same time. And I think that's bad.
Because I wanted to see how he was going to continue, because I thought he was doing okay. And then this turn, I told my wife, I said, I'm going to vote for him this time, but he's got 1 year. He's not only not done what I thought he was going to do, he's gone not completely the opposite direction, but
Pretty far.
Yeah, he's gone pretty far beyond what, and it's not good for the country.
Right.
None of what he's done is good for the country, and that's what I wanted.
He will vote Republican again. Every single election until he dies. He will always, if Trump runs again in 2028, and there's a non-zero chance that happens, I don't think it's going to happen, but it might. He'll vote for Trump again. Again and again and again and again and again and again and again. Okay? Because again, he doesn't really care about money or like owning a home. He doesn't really give a shit. He's just hateful. He's terrified.
I hate to say, I'm not going to say I was wrong, because I don't like to say I was wrong, but I will admit, yeah, I'm questioning pretty hard on things.
Trump came along and told a lot of us that something that we knew to be true was actually true, which is that we live in a system that's stealing from us. And it's funny. I'm from Sullivan, so a lot of my friends are like 3-time Trump voters, and I didn't vote for Trump.
I'm just now noticing he has 2 earrings right here, so I take it back. Nope, vote the Republican. Vote blue unless they have earrings. That's the rule.
Trump, but I very much understand why people did. And then I talk to friends of mine who don't live in Maine or don't live in rural areas, who are always just I don't get it. I'm like, man, everybody down here feels like they're getting robbed. And Trump came along and told us that, one, you are getting robbed. Meanwhile, everybody else is telling us that everything's good. They're like, the system's great, and we should protect it. And Trump said, the system is screwing you, because it is, and we all see it every single day. I was not surprised back in 20.
Here's the thing. It's first off, it's be like he's the only one saying that. Plenty of other people are saying there's a lot of problems. Donald Trump says it in a particularly stupid way, but he's not the only one saying it. But more importantly, and this is the part Graham Plattner won't say, Donald Trump blames the problem on immigrants. And people just hate immigrants. They're just racist. This guy doesn't give a shit. He's getting robbed. By getting robbed, he means he saw one more Mexican person this morning than he did 11 years ago. That's his only actual problem. He's just a hateful piece of shit. I'd like Graham Plattner more if his position was that rural areas in America were going to build a dome around them. And they will not be able to escape. And they can do whatever they want in there.
16, where I had friends of mine who were like, I either like Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump. And I know a lot of people who are like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, it makes sense to me. It does in the sense that it's because both of them were like, this whole thing is screwed up.
Blow it up.
Blow it up. Blow it up and do something different. And I think that was the message. And it's a compelling message, and one that, frankly, I think that, that's my message too.
Trump personally hates poor people more than he's racist. I think Trump personally, the thing about Donald Trump is that he really only gives a shit about himself. And especially as he's gotten older, it's hard for him to pretend otherwise. Like the 2024 election, he barely even criticized immigrants. He mostly left J.D. Vance to do that. What he mostly just said, I'm Russian. I'm simply rooting for Iran, and I believe they'll survive. Their religion isn't built on a single saint, but on the faith of dozens of ayatollahs. Okay. This is a question for you as a Russian. How do you feel about your country's invasion of Ukraine? And if you want to throw it back on me and say, here's a bunch of bad America did, you're not wrong, and I'm willing to say that. How do you feel about that? And that should be the question you ask all these people, okay? Anyone who, if you have issues with American imperialism, if you have issues with Israel's actions towards Palestine, I get you. I'm on your side, man. But are you actually principled, or do you just sort of America bad? But anyway, what was I saying? Yes, Donald Trump in 2024 ran in a position of, I am personally being attacked. His position was not for white people, was not for Americans, was not for men, was not for any of the groups that people thought he was for. His position was for Donald Trump. Everyone is being mean to me personally, and it was really Ukraine had it coming for dressing so provocatively. Great point. People don't know that Zelensky was wearing pumps for a while. Yes. So you're right. I think Donald Trump's racist in as much as like he thinks of like black people as low. He thinks of other like he's just very obsessed with what is pleasant for him to look at. Okay. Now, let's listen. Graham Plattner and this, some are saying Nick Shirley-esque level of chromosomed man discuss Bernie Sanders. And then we're going to talk about Bernie Sanders. And then I'm going to piss people the off. If you want to ask something right in text, I will not do that. And I'd imagine you're probably an AI. Probably a bot of some nature. And that's cool. I'm glad to have bots watching. Give me more bots.
I mean, this thing is, in many ways, irreparably broken. And
Bernie's the reason why I really became 100% cynical, because in 2016,
Yep.
well, both times, that's 2 times that he's been just tossed aside.
Yep.
He had the nomination
oh,
and
agreed.
just got replaced.
Yep. Well, that's the powers that be refused to let him have it, and so they did what they do. They used their power. They didn't play by the rules. They didn't do like that. They didn't let it be a fair playing field. They had power. They used power to make sure that they could protect it, which really is kind of, if you think about it, that's the entire system at this point.
It is.
So, I'm going to show you guys something first, okay? Before I give my opinions on Bernard Sanders, all right? See that poster on the wall? Fight power. Got it on my wall. Okay? My guitars. Look at Bernard Sanders right there. Ladies and gentlemen. Wrong thing. Back to the browser. Oh, look at me. All right. Anyway, guys, I voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary. I volunteered for the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2020. I went to Iowa. I knocked on doors. I tried to get people to caucus. I got called a communist F slur repeatedly, more than once. People weren't ready for it, okay? They didn't care for it. Driving back home that night, Pete Buttigieg comes out and says, I won the Iowa caucus. He didn't win the Iowa caucus. He was I still got a lot of problems with booty, okay? Because of that. In 2016 and in 2020, 2016, I think, even less so. 2020, more so. Most people feel the other way. But I think the Democratic Party coalesced around a candidate. Basically, Bernie wasn't screwed. I don't agree with what Graham Plattner's saying. I don't agree with what this man is saying. Some people disagree with me. Sound off in the chat about how I'm an idiot. But I'm going to tell you what I think. Okay? Hillary Clinton lost the 2008 primary, and it was nasty. People didn't expect Barack Obama to sweep in, but he did. All right? He was charismatic. He was a good speaker. He was like a once-in-a-generation talent politically. He swooped on in. And Hillary Clinton lost. She was nasty about it. She stayed in for a long time. In fact, if you look at it, less Hillary Clinton, and this is another thing I'm repeating without checking, and it's probably wrong, but I don't care. Who cares? Truth doesn't matter. Less Hillary Clinton voters voted for Barack Obama than Bernie Sanders voted for voters voted for Hillary Clinton, right? Follow what I'm saying? A lot of that about like, if only Bernie was a younger man. I think that would have helped, but I don't think Bernie would have won. Maybe in 2016. 2020, I don't think he would have. I really don't. But let's talk about him one at a time. 2016, Hillary Clinton is the presumptive nominee. The head of the DNC, Debbie Schultz, worked on her campaign previously. Donna Brazile, who was the replacement for Debbie Schultz and was very involved in Democratic politics in the DNC, had ties to the Clinton campaign as well. Exactly what those ties are, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of actual proof of. They gave her like one or two, questions before a debate. I don't really think it matters that much, but it's certainly a bad look. I don't like it. I don't like that they did it. I don't like that she put so many of her own apparatus into the Democratic National Committee. That being said, no one was running against Hillary Clinton because they knew that she had it set up for her to run. Okay? There were machinations behind the scenes. All right? Bernie was running. Nobody took him seriously. His campaign manager for a national campaign was a guy he had been working with a long, long, long time, but had never really done anything outside from, they started together when he was running for mayor of Vermont, and then he had been a senator in Vermont for a long time. Bernie never could have won. People get pissed about the superdelegates. I agree. I don't like the superdelegates, but guess what? They wouldn't have made a difference in 2016. Everyone knew who Hillary Clinton was. She had name recognition, for better or for worse, okay? So much of politics, especially in things like primaries, is just name recognition. Right now, if you look at who's leading the polls for 2028, Kamala Harris is number one. Why? Because she was the person who ran last time. Everyone knows who she is. It's just name recognition. So I think people get confused and they think Bernie had more of a chance than he actually did. People get confused because they're like, I hate Hillary Clinton. A lot of people do. Some people liked her. She did have fans. She had supporters, more supporters than people online will have you know. I didn't like Hillary Clinton. I don't particularly care for Hillary Clinton. There's a lot of valid criticisms of her. I completely get it. But she won the nomination. All right? More people showed up to vote in primaries in 2016 for Hillary Clinton than for Bernie Sanders. You cannot like it. I'm not a particularly big fan of it, but it is the case. And you can make other points about, a media environment that's hostile to someone like Bernie Sanders. And sure, there's a lot of, and the right wing sort of has led this, but like a lot of cases, the more moderate, centrist media will follow the right wing. The right wing is very good at creating narratives and creating the framing in which everything is presented as. And so when they say everything's communist, people buy it. Bernie wasn't a communist, okay? He wasn't. He was like a democratic socialist. The whole notion of like Bernie Sanders would be center right in Europe, that's stupid. Those are politically illiterate people. But he would be left wing. Burn everything down. Well, that's what this Graham Plattner guy just said. Okay? What's the ContraPoints tweet? ContraPoints are liberal queen. All right? This in this stream, ContraPoints is a hero. End of story. We love her. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not terribly emotionally connected to that woman who makes like one video and then comes out and pisses everybody off, which I'm a big fan of. Is that another one of you yelling at Nazis? We'll get to it. We'll do some yelling at Nazis. Let me finish up this Graham Plattner bit and we'll have a fun little viewing party for some yelling at Nazis. 2020. Okay. This is why I say, people say like 2016, they screwed over Bernie more. I think that's because in 2016, people look at the Hillary Clinton campaign staffers that were involved in the DNC, which is not good. I don't like that she did it, but I just think at the end of the day, the effect wasn't that much. Hillary had the nomination in 2016, whether you like it or not. Bernie never really had a shot. No one actually thought he had a shot until it was too late. Most of all, Bernie himself. He was running a campaign mostly to get, messaging out there as opposed to actually thinking he's going to win. 2020, he had decent infrastructure, but the problem Bernie Sanders has, all right, people don't want to talk about this, but it's just the case, is black voters. And guess what? You're not getting the Democratic nomination without the support of black voters. You're just not. I'm sorry. Because people in online lefty spaces will say like there are no Democratic supporters. There are no actual like fans of the Democratic Party as an institution. There are, you know who they are? They're old black people in the South. All right? And they decide this. So 2020, Bernie wins the Iowa caucus. Pete Buttigieg claims he won. That guy, a little rat-faced piece of human. He didn't really win. Bernie won. Bernie wins Nevada. All right? There are some other ones. I meant this. All right, I'll get to it. He won some other ones. But he was looking good. All right? Heading into Super Tuesday. Thank you. He was looking good. But more importantly, Joe Biden was looking like shit. He came in like 4th or 5th, okay? He wasn't doing great. But there was no clear sort of Democratic Party, mainstream establishment, dim, liberal, whatever you want to say. You know, lib. What do people say? Lib. Don't be so mean to the libs. Come on, we're trying. There was no clear lib. You know, they tried Klobuchar, they tried Buttigieg. Again, Buttigieg, 0 black support. Then South Carolina rolls around. And libtard. Exactly. And I am libtarded. Let the record state. Lib Nick Shirley. It's my new favorite thing. Instead of saying retard, which you shouldn't say. People don't like it, but you are allowed. And so I do it. Instead, I just say someone has a Nick Shirley level of chromosomes. Is how I refer to people. So Jim Clyburn, the head of the Congressional Black Caucus, I think, if there's one person most responsible for Joe Biden being president, it would probably be Donald Trump. But there's one person most responsible for Joe Biden being the Democratic nominee, I would say it's Jim Clyburn. He endorsed Joe Biden ahead of the South Carolina primary. And guess what? That means a lot in South Carolina. All right? And Joe Biden did good with black voters. That's how he got the Democratic nomination. Bernie did better with white voters. Bernie actually did really good with Hispanic voters, who then later moved over to Donald Trump largely. So it's complicated. But after Joe Biden wins South Carolina, you know, and then Super Tuesday, right before Super Tuesday, a bunch of people drop out and they endorse Joe Biden. Okay? People can say like machinations behind the scenes. I think phone calls were made, but I think alliances were made. I think that's how politics work. You build coalitions and you support people. That's what it is, man. And I don't like it. I would have preferred Bernie Sanders be the president. I don't think he would have won. Okay? Why don't I think he would have won? Because Donald Trump won the popular vote in 2024. He got more votes in 2020 than he did before. I mean, maybe Bernie would have won then, but America is not as left-wing as people think it is. I'm sorry. I knocked on too many doors and got called a communist retard faggot. And I say that, I might be banned for that now. I got called it, so I'm allowed to say it, right? That's how that works. Listen, I'm not homophobic. I look at penises and gay pornography. I don't think America's left wing as these people think they are. Okay? And I think, again, at the end of the day, I don't like what the Democratic Party did in 2020. It's only because their education is so people don't understand the nature of the disenfranchisement. Yes. We can have larger conversations about media environment. We can have larger conversations about shaping narratives. We can have larger conversations about how stupid American people are. That is all correct. But I think any discussion about the 2016 or the 2020 primaries, when they say, quote unquote, Bernie was robbed, they do not address the fact that more actual human beings showed up and voted for other people. All right? Joe Biden got more votes. Okay? People are actually more left-wing. They just don't understand the problem, not the source. And, well, this is what the Graham Plattner campaign is going to present. I think people are just racist. I think the economic populism is what left-wing people claim they'll be able to sell to the American people. And Graham Plattner's a test run for it. And if he can do it, that's great, man. If he can sell it, if that can happen, because I would love, the notion of we are going to redistribute wealth. We are going to add more democracy in the workplace. At a certain point, people will overlook their racism. It means they get more money. That's what you think. But I mean, the long history of American politics, especially post the New Deal, the New Deal, because we were in a Great Depression and people were so miserable that they voted for it. There's so many rights that have been torn away from people just because they also thought black people would have it. But again, I'm just very cynical about these things. I have a very low opinion of the American people. The promise of someone like Graham Plattner is that if we present these ideas of more economic democracy, if we present them in a way that is blue collar coded, that is, quote unquote, chud coded, we can sell it to these people. That's why he's doing an interview with a Trump voter. Can he sell this to a Trump voter? I'm skeptical. I don't have a lot of hope in it, but we'll see, man. We'll see.
What's your health insurance situation?
I'm on my wife's.
Yeah. Okay.
Health insurance is horrible.
You really couldn't come up with a more inefficient way
It's
of
just like
providing
everything
healthcare.
else. It's broken.
It's broken.
What did Ronald Reagan say? The 7 words. I'm from the government. I'm here to help. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, for me, is like until this last year, because this last year with the Republican budget cuts, it hit the VA pretty hard. But until this last year, my VA care has been spectacular. Like I go up to Bangor, or I can do community care in Ellsworth for the small stuff, like going to the urgent care and stuff. And my VA care has been it was life-changing. Something feels weird, I just call up my doctor. I'm like, hey, this hurts. And they're like, come on in. They do an x-ray, they take a look at it, and then I go, and we just take care of it. Things don't have to wait. I don't have to set things off because I'm afraid that I have to pay for it. And to me, that was one of the things that really kind of changed my opinions on what well-run government programs can do.
I've
afraid to deal with.
never received a VA benefit.
Really?
I got out of the military in '86.
You've got an honorable discharge?
I got a general.
First off, 86. What the are you doing? Fighting in the Falklands War? Maine feels about as real as Middle Earth. Yeah, Maine is like, what if Boston was more racist? What if we removed all the good things about Boston and then made all the bad things even more so? That's Maine for you. So, first off, you shouldn't just go to the doctor every time any little thing works up. People can go to the doctor too much. People are too hypochondriac. Even in America, where we have healthcare, everyone's walking around with a stupid boot on the. I guess it all comes down to, again, the problem with for-profit healthcare, just to kind of begin with, when there's money in selling people. I don't know, man. But this again is the promise of someone like Graham Plattner. This guy, can he be convinced that, public option, Medicare for all, whatever the want to do exactly, the exact notion of it, would he be willing to vote for that? I think it would be better for him. He said he's never gotten a VA benefit. He said he'd on his wife's insurance. He might like his insurance. A lot of people do, weirdly. I don't get it, man. Insurance is stupid. I have United insurance now, and I went to the doctor for an annual checkup, and it was still like $170. Even with the insurance. I was like, this is with the insurance. They're like, yeah. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I get why Luigi did what he did. And by that, I mean co-star in the Super Mario Galaxy movie, now streaming on probably somewhere. Can you get this guy to vote for healthcare that is more beneficial to him? I don't know. I think there's a couple problems. For one, he won't want a black person to get it. If a black person gets it too, and he does any sort of welfare program with being black and he hates black people. I believe that 100%. Absolutely. But on top of that, there's American weird Protestant work ethic thing where Americans are very moralistic. Americans will hurt themselves if they feel they don't, quote unquote, deserve it. They're very much like, no, you got to work for it. That was the big thing. When I knocked on doors in Iowa for Bernie Sanders, people would just be like, you can't just be getting a free handout. That's why I vote for Trump. He works for what he got. People tell me that. I'll be like, I'm not going to debate, bro, you. I'm too dumb for this. I'm not going to do it. But that's a big, 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 big problem you have to get over when dealing with American voters. A, if a black person also gets it, it's going to be real hard for them to support it. It'll be real hard. And then B, they're also going to be big and to be like, well, people who don't don't get what they deserve. Then also the whole communist thing. That's communism. That's socialism. That's blah, 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 blah. So again, my position, this guy might shake Graham Plattner's hand, might do everything. I find it very hard to believe. Very, very hard to believe. He will not vote Republican every chance he gets the rest of his life.
A general, yeah. Really? Yeah, but geez, you've got a general that...
Last fall, because I am getting older, and I said last fall, I said, maybe I'll check into it. So I went to my local VA in Machias.
Yep.
And there's one woman that works there. And she gave me a phone number, and I said, so is this, she said, that's to a lawyer. And I said, what's the lawyer for? She goes, that's who you're going to have to go through to get your discharge upgraded. And I said, you kidding me, really?
Yeah.
A lawyer? I said, why not just go why can't the VA do it?
So one of my best friends from Iraq, guy did 2 tours, did Fallujah Ramadi, a legitimate war hero. I've seen this guy do like actual heroism in combat. He smoked pot after we got back.
Nope. Take him the out. That is so wild. The true things that, like, here's the only actual thing that all Americans can agree on. All Americans can agree on. All right? They want lower taxes and they want legal weed. This is the only
From our second deployment, popped on a test, got discharged out of the Marine Corps, kicked out, OTH, other than honorable, no benefits. He spent years just struggling. I mean, this is a guy who legitimately, is an actual war hero, and he didn't get a single shred of support from the VA. And it was all because the way that they write the rules. We wound up getting his discharge upgraded. But it took, like, myself and a couple other guys that he served with, we all kind of got together. We got a lawyer involved. We got this, and what was awful the whole time is being like, this shouldn't be complicated.
Right.
I mean, this guy has a combat record. Like, we can look through his service record book and his DD-214, and you can see that this guy did things for the nation in war. And yet somehow now we got a lawyer involved, and we did all this thing, and it worked in the end. But it was a multi-year process, and it was so frustrating. And that.
But again, the whole thing, someone says, like, imagine if Joe Biden did something as progressive as legalize weed federally. I'd like to do that, but how does one do that? I mean, there's like executive orders, but can Joe Biden just through an executive order make weed legal at the federal level? If so, he should do that. But then there would be, the whole problem with anytime you have to be like, a Democrat should do this, and it becomes a problem because it makes it hard to criticize him, even though I'm like, I would like if they were to do these things. But you have to deal with the Republican Party, which is at any given moment around half, sometimes slightly more, sometimes slightly less. Right now, it's all the power that we have. I think we specifically should outlaw veterans from getting to smoke weed. I think they could use it. They're going through some. Like, you have to deal no relief for your troubled mind. Come on. Be nice to the veterans. Come on. Some of them, killed some Iraqis. So, But I think you have to deal with, when anytime a Democrat president, you yell at them about like, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't do this. It's hard to get it done, especially when you have such an opposition party in the Republican Party who do everything they can to make sure you cannot realize your policy goals. So let's say if Joe Biden had tried to legalize weed at the federal level, I think that would have been great. I think that would have been a good idea. What mechanisms? Is it just executive order? Joe Biden wanted to get more things done through legislation than executive order, which is understandable because then it's actually long lasting. But it speaks to a larger problem that old school Democrats do, which is you can't get things legislation because the Republican Party doesn't care. They don't have ideology. They just want to destroy whatever you want to do. So if he had done an executive order, that would have been challenged in the courts. It might have worked. I don't know. You could argue that you'd like to see him try, even if they're going to fail, just because, it makes you feel better about what they're doing for the American people. And maybe you're right, but, so you should consider. Don't blame vets. Most of them just wanted a job. Yeah, I don't know. It's fun and edgy to be vets, and I get it. A lot of them are stupid, but come on. They just wanted to have sex with a Vietnamese woman and then realized they signed up for the wrong war. They were watching Full Metal Jacket, and they're like, yeah, sucky, sucky. Yeah, dude. And they showed it. Just imagine that. Someone watching all these Vietnam War movies and they're like, I'm going to get laid. They show up to Iraq and they go, the is this? What the hell's going on here? There's no pussy anywhere.
Something that for me, like one of the reasons I want to go to the U.S. Senate is that having gone through these things personally and seen directly like what the bureaucratic problems are that keep people from getting it, I want to go up and write policy to make all this easier. I also want to, frankly, unleash like an army of social workers to go around the country and find vets who aren't getting the benefits they deserve and then do the process for them. Because when people
He just lost lamp support. They're going to move across, just directly parallel across the country to Maine just to volunteer for the Plattner campaign. But now he's like, we're going to help. Lamp is running on a very anti-veteran platform. Her platform is we're sending them back. We're doing it again. We're sending them to other wars, all right? If you're a Vietnam vet, you go to Afghanistan now. If you're an Afghanistan vet, weirdly, Germany. All right? If you fought in the first Iraq War, we're sending your Gen X drop another bomb on Japan. Deal with it.
are working really hard or people are struggling, the idea that they're going to
And eventually everyone gets together to kill all the Indians. And I mean the Native Americans, not the, prosperous H-1B visa workers.
sit down and like figure out all this paperwork, like hire a lawyer. I mean, if you're working paycheck to paycheck already, who's got the like nobody has extra money to go hire an attorney. Yeah.
I mean, you're doing it in the evening when all the offices are closed.
As they fought for you, I will say, would you please go do some more exactly?
What's up, man? Hey.
How goes the battle, bro?
It's going. How are you?
I'm good. Off I go.
Oh yeah, it's.
Was that real or was
You
that
support
staged?
Social
I feel like that
Security?
might have been staged.
I mean, for me to pay in my whole life and they tell me I get $1,100 back
Yeah.
a month, that's kind of insulting.
I think what we have to do is remove the cap on Social Security contributions. So right now, every dollar over $176,000 of income that someone makes does not go in to Social Security contributions, which means that somebody making $25 million a year pays the exact same dollar amount into Social Security as somebody making $176,000 a year.
He doesn't walk anymore.
Elon Musk pays his Social Security contributions within something like a minute and a half of the new year. If we remove the cap on Social Security and simply didn't even raise the rate, just kept it fair that everybody pays in the same percentage, we would be able to not just protect Social Security forever and all time, we'd be able to expand benefits and we'd allow Americans to retire even a little bit earlier. There is absolutely no excuse for either children or the elderly in the state of Maine to go without heat or to go without food or to.
Yeah, there's some excuses for the elderly to do it. Children, I don't know, there's some ugly kids. Anyway, I would agree with that. Remove the cap on Social Security, put more into it. I like Social Security. I think Social Security is a great program. It is the greatest socialist program America's ever done. One of the last vestiges, again, of the New Deal, FDR's New Deal that they had. So I'm with him on this one, and I like that he's actually talking about policy. This guy doesn't respond, doesn't care, isn't paying attention. Again, he would go, I don't know, does a black guy kind of get it? No? Okay.
Go without some kind of adequate housing.
I mean, we live in a rich country.
We live in the richest country in the history of the world.
Nobody should be hungry.
None whatsoever.
Or homeless.
Yeah, but this whole thing about no one should be hungry or homeless. Okay. Actually, ask him. Ask him, okay, do you support any government programs to help people with homes? Nope, didn't work for it. Don't deserve it. And because, again, people are schizophrenic. If you said, because when he says, what about poor people? He'd think, well, I'm poor. He might think that, or he might think he's a temporarily millionaire. But he could also say, all my friends, my brother, my uncles, whatever, they all don't have a lot of money, but they're not like those bad ones who didn't work for it. And they're just going to spend it all on fentanyl. And they're just, blah, 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 blah. you can get just platitudes from these people. You can get them to just say like, well, yeah, no one should be hungry. But how do you, when you actually discuss solutions, that's when the problem comes in. Oh, this is rough.
How do you feel about land monopolization?
I hate every amount of it. I despise the idea of any corporation, honestly, whether it's a private equity company out in New York or whether it's somebody in China. I hate the idea of any corporation buying up land in places that people live.
Or need to live.
I mean, the land should be owned by the people that live and work it, in my opinion. Like that's it, like that, and it's no. I mean, like even here in Maine, we've got this problem right now. We've got it's insane of either private equity firms or hedge funds or like international corporations,
Here's
Chinese
Clearwater
companies
folder pull over.
buying
That's a
up
great
land in
point.
Maine. That shouldn't be legal.
I would agree with that, I suppose. As with all these things, I mean, whatever. He's a politician. He's not going to sit here and break down every single policy he's got going on. But broadly speaking, I think it's a good direction. I don't disagree with that. The same thing about Mamdani's, in New York City, greatly taxing residences that people don't live in. I think it's a good idea. But the whole idea of like the problem we have with like a shortage of housing and things like that, we just got to build more houses, man. You are late, Hosey, but guess what? I'm going late tonight. I'm still chatting. I've been going on for, according to this, an hour and 57 minutes now. And there were some tech problems at the beginning, so it's over 2 hours really at this point. But I'm still in it, man. I'm going to do some more. We're going to watch some cute videos of Lamp yelling at Nazis after this. But the problem we have is that, anything like rent control and stuff like that, I don't know enough about economics. People who do know a lot about economics will say rent control is a bad idea and stuff like that. I don't know. But I don't have a problem with the notion of restricting, basically anyone but individuals who actually live somewhere from owning a place. Broadly speaking, there's whatever. That's a little too far. But I'm not against what he's saying right now, but at the end of the day, he's not going to abolish capitalism. And under capitalism, there's always going to be supply and demand economics at play. Okay? So consequently, we just don't have enough houses. There's been a lot of propaganda about rent control. You might be right about that. I honestly haven't really looked into it. I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I'm not against it or for it. I really haven't looked much into it. I really don't know. But to me, my main impetus for such things would be building more houses. Because I think a big problem that we have is a lot of NIMBY, not in my backyard policies in the 80s. So many problems can be tracked back to Ronald Reagan and his whole thing. But this notion of, wealthy, yuppie boomers being like, we can't build especially big apartment buildings and like, densely concentrated housing, which is what we need more of. We can't build those next to my house. It'll lower my property values. So, I'd be all for like greatly taxing, down wealth, because wealth through property is the number one way in which we down wealth in the United States of America. So if you greatly tax that to the point that people might not keep so much of their revenue, so much of their investments into real estate, I'm all for that. But any solution that's not primarily about reducing regulation so that we can build more stuff, I think it's limited, What's the idea of rent control, as I understand it, is that legally you can only charge so much more per year, percentage-wise, or whatever it is, greatly controlling that. Yeah, I mean, what are the downstream effects of that? I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, what's going to inspire more people to build more? That's what I want. And I worry that with rent control, there wouldn't be as much investment in building new properties because people wouldn't be able to make enough money off them. And you could say like, well, who gives a just build them anyway? Sure. But we're not overthrowing capitalism anytime soon. Okay. Good luck. Godspeed, soldier, but we're not. And so in the system in which we live in, we have to work with a series of incentives. All right. And what incentivizes people to build more, I am for. But again, and this is the Plattner thing, and I agree with him on this one. Once it's built, when it gets snapped up by a BlackRock or whatever the it is, I don't like that as much. Build more, rent and sell to people who actually were going to live there. And then we'll circulate money back into the economy.
Like there's a place on Beals Island, it's a nonprofit.
Yep.
Right? They're buying up all the land. Well, on Beals Island, all the land is an island. It's coastal. It's all waterfront.
It's all waterfront taxable.
It's all waterfront, and they don't have to pay taxes on it. They're buying it, no taxes. Guess what's happening to the tax base on Beals Island?
Yep.
I mean, their taxes are exploding.
There is no rule in the Constitution that says we need to let corporations own our natural resources.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
First off, and this guy immediately just goes, Sarah Huckabee Sanders is doing this. I like her. But I think that's kind of stupid to be like, there's no law in the Constitution that says blah, 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 blah. I know he's trying to appeal to the lowest IQ humans on earth who are like, it doesn't say in the Constitution that blacks should get welfare. But that's like what the Constitution says or doesn't say. It's a living document that gets modified all the time. So looking to it as some sort of authority, I think is kind of silly, but whatever.
And Arkansas is doing that.
Is putting those, yeah.
Oh yeah, she's already signed legislation that any Chinese entity that owns land in Arkansas, they have to sell it back.
Yep. I mean, I
would love to have this man explain to me further what he knows about what Sarah Huckabee Sanders said. I'm not even going to look it up. I'd imagine it's complete and total. She just lied about that. Yeah, it's so weird. You notice he goes Chinese. His main, but again, he doesn't really care. He just hates Chinese people.
I would go even further, and I would
kill
like
every
basic
Chinese
corporate
person.
Ownership. Period. I mean, I really am against the idea that like private corporations can start accruing so much of a public good, like land or water.
But they were complaining about Bill Gates owning 270,000 acres of farmland in the United States.
It's almost less about who owns it.
He probably doesn't. That's probably just made up. I don't know. I haven't checked it. That's the other problem we need to talk about here too, which is the media environment of these people. We're not going to be able to get anything done in this country unless we greatly regulate media licenses and things of that nature. Okay? We're just not, man. It's tough, but it's the absolute case. When we have Fox News, making everyone think the real enemy is Bill Gates or something like that, and not even because, he has too much money, but because he's too Jewish, even though he's not. We're not getting anywhere. I'm going to find it hard to support any presidential nominee in 2028 who doesn't make it a big part of their platform to destroy the Republican propaganda apparatus.
And it's more about the fact that kind of consolidated ownership can happen in the first place. Like, because I think that kind of consolidated ownership is legitimately bad for people.
Yeah.
Because it winds up with folks. It winds up with one or two, or say a company being able to accrue an immense amount of power, which they can then use for their benefit. And the average person, they've got no input on that. Okay. It was a pleasure.
Good talking to you.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you so much for doing this.
You bet.
Yeah, no, this was great.
Do you think he convinced you to vote for him?
Oh, I was going to vote for him anyway.
He absolutely will not.
I haven't really been keeping it a secret.
I do not believe him one single bit. Nowadays, there are no such corporations. They all have been absorbed by funds. Well, what's the difference? Corporation fund. The bigger point is that I don't like the idea of people who don't live in a place owning property in a place. So again, the Mamdani thing in New York City, where if you have a residence where you do not live in the majority of the time, he's going to tax the out of it. I like that a lot. I support it. So the question someone asked earlier, should Graham Plattner go on Tucker Carlson? Because apparently Tucker Carlson invited him on. Should he go on Tucker Carlson? Now, I have no love for Tucker Carlson. None whatsoever. I know he's been grifting in a populist direction nowadays. He's again on that vow about everything is, the Israel, and he does just mean the Jews. And a lot of very stupid people are like, yeah, I love Tucker Carlson. He's more to the left in the Democratic Party because he also hates Israel. He's lying. He doesn't care. He would murder one Palestinian baby and then use that corpse to murder every other Palestinian baby if he thought that would be slightly more lucrative for him. He doesn't give a shit. He's a liar. He's a grifter. He believes nothing. I have no respect for that man. You, in fact, don't have to give it to him. Should Graham Plattner go on Tucker Carlson? Probably. I think he should. The question is, what should he do on Tucker Carlson? That is the bigger question. Because to me, like, go on anywhere, talk to anybody. The whole notion of like platforming someone, I think, is kind of silly. You know, they should have gay sex right there. BlackRock funds holding increased by how much? I don't know exactly. But open mouth. You should, especially if you're running for office, but really if you're any sort of person in the public view who's trying to push an ideology or any sort of plan to do anything, you should go on every platform you have, you know? And Tucker Carlson is a stupid lying grifter. You shouldn't have any respect for him, but that doesn't mean you can't use him. He got attacked by that demon in the middle of the night. Poor guy. He probably said the demon jacked him off or something like that. People don't know how off the end he is right now. He talks a lot. When he was on Joe Rogan, he talked a lot about how aliens are actually angels. He believes none of it. He is absolutely not a Christian. He lives in Maine, interestingly enough. He's not a Christian. He doesn't believe in anything. Now, if Graham Plattner was to go on and again attack, yeah, it is truly impressive how he literally believes nothing that he says. He doesn't care. It is his talent. People underrate Tucker Carlson. They really, really do. He has a talent for propaganda. He's very good at making it seem like he's sincere to idiots. To anyone with even a slight level of intelligence in their head, they'd look at it and be like, Jesus Christ, you're lying right now. But anyway, if Graham Plattner went on and attacked Tucker Carlson, I'd love it. Because again, to me, my number one issue is right-wing media. That truly, to me, is the number one problem facing America right now. I actually do sincerely believe that. I think Tucker Carlson is a greater threat than like Jeff Bezos or whatever, you know? You write in the chat, I'm Russian and don't understand anything. I could write in the chat, but I'm not going to. Because that would require me. I can write in the chat. All right, let me write one thing in the chat. All right, let me write in the chat right here. Let me go to English to Russian. All right. Do you support your country's invasion of Ukraine? There you go. Just going to say it out loud.
Поддерживаете ли вы вторжение вашей страны в Украину?
Again.
Поддерживаете ли вы вторжение вашей страны в Украину?
No, that was cool how that did that and just posted that Cyrillic right there. How do Russians say wow? The most common way to say wow in Russian are oketi, orga for surprise. Okay, yeah, interesting. Have you ever seen your father's penis?
Ты когда-нибудь видел пенис своего отца?
What did you call you? What's the worst slur in Russian? Worst slurs in Russian. Now we're having fun. I said, literally cock. Commonly used. Idianaikai. Pizda. Blad. Yob tovu mat. No, didn't see. Well, that's lame. All right, we're having fun, guys. We're enjoying ourselves. Anyway, I very sincerely do not like right-wing media. So if Graham Plattner went on Tucker Carlson's show and like over Tucker Carlson personally and attacked him, I'd like it. But that might not be the best politically. The thing is, should Graham Plattner go on? Sure. Would it be beneficial to him? Maybe. I don't really think so. My guess is he probably will do it, and it'll probably be just them agreeing. You know, probably be Tucker, and Tucker's smart. I think smarter than Graham Plattner, smarter than most people. And we'll throw in the things about Israel and get Graham Plattner to, you know, be like, that's a genocide. It's the issue of our time, and et cetera, et cetera. But mostly it'll just be them agreeing about how, you know, the evil elites control too much and blah, blah, blah. And then afterwards, every single Tucker Carlson viewer will vote Republican. Every single voter, every single Tucker Carlson viewer and voter will vote Republican. Every single one of them. But I've translated your aggression. Correct. You're winning the war, but do you think your country should have invaded Ukraine? I'm not going to have a conversation with you through Google Translate, as fun as that is. But I love you. I love all your people. All right, Lamp, let's do it. I've officially we've talked all about Graham Plattner. I've solved all the issues. We did it. If you live in Maine, you should write me in for Senate.